so much for being here tonight. Welcome. What an incredible pleasure this is to welcome Jim Chapson and Farrell and to celebrate two new publications from Adjunct Press. Those are Milwaukee Liddy Hagiography, poems by Tyler, and then Walk a Little Differently Uphill, poems by, and poems and letters from James Liddy. So many thanks, Tyler, thanks Jim, thank you Johnny and Adjunct, Alice, and thanks Johnny for organizing this too. Really tremendous. It's been quite a while since we've had the opportunity to host either of those, so to be able to do so together is terrific. We do of course have those two books for sale. This is a little, 1 second. Just getting a little ringing. There we go. All right, that's better. Do that before the poetry starts so that I can just be awkward by myself up here, roping anybody else into it. So yeah, those books in addition to others by Jim and Tyler, so please visit the bookstore. And then I'm just, so I'm Mike Went, I'm the program director here. I have just a couple of announcements, 2 announcements, let's say, and then I'm going to turn things over to Johnny Ward, who's going to introduce each of the poets this evening. First, Jim will be up and then Tyler. So, announcement the first is that we hope you will come back and see us sometime soon. More specifically, next weekend, we are hosting a weekend with City Lights publishers. So we'll have 4 incredible poets here. Roberto Harrison, who's based here in Milwaukee, who many of you know, along with Evan Kennedy, Mimi Tempest, and Will Alexander, all with relatively recent books from City Lights, all incredible poets. There will be 2 readings, one Friday night, the 12th, and one Saturday, the 13th, and a conversation with all 3 poets on that Saturday, the 13th, in the afternoon. So it'll be Mimi Tempest and Evan Kennedy on Friday night, conversation in the afternoon, Saturday night, Will Alexander with Roberto Harrison. So it's like, so next weekend, I hope you can join us for some or all of those events. And beyond that, there is a lot happening here through the spring. So check in with woodlandpattern.org or newsletters at the front desk, or just chat us up and we'll let you know what's happening. And then I wanted to say also that we are a nonprofit organization hosting most of our events on a give what you can basis. Your individual support goes a long way towards sustaining us, so if you're in a position to give, we hope you might consider doing so. But also thank you for just being here and making this space with us, which is its own very important form of support. But if you want to, if you're interested in that other form of support, you can come to us at the front. Thanks. Okay, that's all from me. I am thrilled to turn things over to Johnny Lohr, poet and co-editor of Adjunct Press, who helped organize this reading this evening. We'll introduce the poets. Johnny, thank you so much for organizing and for being here.
Let's see. So Jim Chapson is the reason I became a poet after taking his class in 2006. I've forgiven him for this, and I hope others won't hold it against him either. When he was first corrupting me, he gave me a copy of his chapbook, Bishop Fisher's Tippet, and the James Liddy, Paul Vogel Mandelstam translations were both put out by Blue Canary, I believe. This dawned upon me that you don't have to try for some kind of big capital T publication. You can just make your own poetry books and give them to friends and have a good time with it. And so Jim is also directly responsible for my poorly running a small press. And again, I've tried to forgive him for this. Jim is also the author of Daphnis and Ratboy, Plotinus, Blush, and Scolia, as well as many small press publications like Blue House Poems of the Chinese Manner with James Liddy and Thomas Hill, Jim's book, A Biography of Frank O'Hara, The American Coot, and others, including allowing us to put out his chapbook Squids a couple of years ago, for which we're still grateful. Jim Chapson.
This won't be too long. About 10 poems, all 10 or 15 lines, except for a line-by-line exegesis of the Iliad. It'll take about 3 days. They've all been poetry readings, which seem to take about 3 days. I'll try to cut this shorter. It's a relief on waking to find yourself in a world not unlike the one you left in sleep the night before, where you see out the window cars gliding by, not fish, where your morning cup of coffee has not become a frog, and a dropped fork does not fly to the ceiling, but falls reassuringly to the floor, clattering as it should. Styli. In the year 877, students of the Irish philosopher John Scotus Eriugena, angered by his baffling paradoxes, stabbed him repeatedly with sharpened styli. But the wounds, though many, were shallow due to the weakness of the boy's arms, rendering the philosopher's dying painfully long drawn out. According to William of Malmesbury, writing 3 centuries later, and likely conflating the philosopher's death with the martyrdom of Cassian of Imola in 363, as recounted in the Roman Martyrology. So it might be prudent to doubt the story's historicity, but not its truth. A story so compelling must be also true, even if unsupported by the facts. All the more so if unsupported by the facts. Biology lesson. The children believed when they saw for themselves what the teacher had promised. The caterpillars' brown coffins breaking open, butterflies unfurling their delicate wings. But some never open. They must have lacked an element crucial for the transformation, the teacher said, tossing them out of the terrarium, still clinging to their twigs. Under the Oort cloud, you remember the Oort cloud from your astronomy classes? It's sort of an enclosing sphere at the outer limit of the solar system, composed of frozen comets. Once upon a time, the legends say, we lived on planet Earth, where it was warm, leaves grew on trees, and there was air to breathe. The ancestors who brought us here, the legends say, would point to one of the stars in the black sky and say, that one's our sun. Now we know only what we need to know to manage the machinery which lets us live under the Oort cloud's icy fringe. There are a few poems which are kind of riffs on Greek and Russian Orthodox icons, which you might recognize. This is the latter. At the end of the shift, you discover you got the same pay as the others who lounged all day in the shade while you busted your ass in the sun. Your sister entertains the guests on her second glass of wine while you were consigned to the kitchen, scrubbing the pots and pans. Your feckless younger brother gets your parents' attention and love, while they have reserved for you the headaches of running the farm. Accused of committing adultery, you face death by stoning, while the one who is really at fault gets off with a lecture and a warning. You are climbing an endless ladder, disappearing into the clouds, while demons swarming around you compete to pull you down. Not exactly cheerful, Paul. There it is. This is what the Lord God showed me. The Lord God showed me 2 scorpions in a silver bowl. Then he poured fire into the bowl. What do you see? He said. Ashes, I said. He emptied the bowl, filled it with wine. Drink, he said. I drank. And now, shepherds and shepherdesses, I said, sporting in amorous play, as in a painting by Watteau. Drink more, he said. The shepherdesses have now retired, I said, to their boudoirs, and the shepherds lie together wrapped in sheepskins on the stony ground. Finish, he said. I drank the bitter dregs, and the Lord took me by the hand, for now I could see nothing. The thinking apparatus has done its work, he said, and has concluded nothing more can be seen or said. But there is much to know, and the purgation of the affective apparatus will now begin. How the prophet handed down his power. This is another icon. When the prophet and his disciple had crossed the river and entered the desert, there appeared in the sky above them a team of fiery horses drawing a blazing chariot wrapped in a blood-red cloud. And the prophet, with his mantle of power draped across his shoulders, entered the cloud and was carried away in a whirlwind, leaving the disciple alone, unaware the prophet's mantle had fallen at his feet. Rain. This is a funny one. In a corner of the curio shop, between the postcards and the t-shirts, they are listening. In a glass case beside a card saying, "Not for sale," they are listening. With eyes sewn shut, they cannot see. With lips sewn shut, they cannot speak. Cut from their bodies, the shrunken heads cannot move, but are listening to the sound of wind through the palm trees, waves rolling over the reef, cars driving by not stopping, rain on the roof all night, rain dripping from the eaves and the awnings. Two more. Lago de Como. He was sitting on the cafe terrace, overlooking Lago de Como, 2 waiters attending him, one bringing the espresso doppio, the other a chocolate biscuit on a white plate. It was the end of summer. Boys of impossible beauty drifted by. How could he not think of Aschenbach? Triangular sails glided, ferry boats puffed rhythmically. The waiters approached naked, but this didn't seem unusual, lifted and carried him to a waiting ferry. He wept at their tenderness. A dog barked. The boat began to move. The waiters were gone, but the captain, a boy in a loose white shirt, said, "I will take care of you now," speaking without words, directly into his heart. They neared a landing of veined marble on which 2 candles flickered from tall candlesticks. Little waves splashed against the stone. There was no one to meet him. Don't worry, the ferryman said, speaking again into his heart. Everything is provided for. And the final one, the banquet. Having cleared the passageway of rubble, we discovered an inner chamber, empty and without decoration, but for a fresco opposite the doorway, depicting the room itself, arranged for some ritual purpose. In the center, a table with 2 chairs. On the table, 2 plates, 2 knives, 2 cups for wine. Just that, and a puzzling inscription, the banquet.
Thank you, Jim. And then I first met Tyler Farrell at Jim Chapson and James Liddy's apartment, I think around 2006-ish. And we've chatted occasionally over the years. We would run into each other at readings or at Art Bar. And we became closer friends recently as we were working together on these chapbooks. Tyler's a traditional Milwaukee poet in that you can bump into him and know that the conversation can easily run from Little League baseball tournaments to Lefebvrist cults of St. Mary and everything in between, always kind of centering around the idea, at least, of poetry behind it. Tyler is the author of Tethered to the Earth, The Land of Give and Take, and Sticomythia?
Sticomythia.
Yeah, that's what I said. Among others, and contributed to a biographical essay of James Liddy's selected poems. And most recently, he allowed us to put out these 2 chapbooks, Milwaukee Liddy Hagiography, which is Tyler's poems alongside correspondences from James Liddy, and Walk a Little Differently Uphill, 11 poems and 5 letters by James, which was edited by Tyler. Tyler Farrell.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for publishing these books too. I really appreciate it, just because I did kind of want a chapbook sort of feel, and I think it's really come across, so I appreciate that. Thank you also to Lee Patton for having us, and to Northland College as well, because it's going to remain open for 2 more weeks, well, luckily. So I'm going to read some poems from the new book and a couple other things. The good thing about putting out a book, with James Liddy stuff in it is that I sound really good reading James's stuff, so that's awesome. This was kind of a labor of love for me because I've had letters and a lot of things from James for a long time, and his letters are almost like poems, and so I thought putting them in some kind of collection was necessary. I'm hoping to actually do more in the future, and maybe a selected letters or something. But these poems are mostly written in the last year or so. But this book, one of the main themes of it is mentors. I've had a lot of really good mentors in my life. James being one of them, Jim, my father, a lot of other teachers, and so I wanted to kind of have that as the main idea. So I thought I would actually start with a poem that's about my father. He passed away about 2 years ago, and I miss him a lot. And he was one of the first people to encourage me to be a poet, or to write poetry at least. So I thought that, he deserved a poem. So this is called I'm Reading John Montague Poems to My Father. And there's a quote from Henry V at the beginning of it. It says, "A largesse universal like the sun, his liberal eye doth give to every one." So here it is. I'm reading John Montague Poems to My Father. Archangels demand nothing from us except poems and presence, sounds of darkness from the teeth of a hurricane, days and weeks only the lost fragrance to leap upstairs with shadows amplified by closeness. He needs help now to get to his bed, his books, his sense that nothing has changed when the deepening twilight tumbles toward driftless eternal. I can see he is nodding approval, sounds echoing in his brain where the circle is near to life and courage sits safely on a warm bank under sun, words never ceasing, love or worship, and finding ways to be giants and poets simultaneously. Next to this poem is a letter from James, and it's one of my favorites, so I thought I would read this next. This was sent to me from Creighton, his house in County Wexford in Ireland, to my house, the one I grew up in West Allis, Wisconsin, which I also put after that West Allis is also the birthplace of Liberace, which I think is very important to know. So here we go. This was written in June of 1999. This is from James. It says, "Dear and broken heart, your voice was great last night. God bless Edison, Ma Bell, telecommunications Aaron, Ameritech. Election day here, European elections. The poll is low in America, but I love elections. Ancient Irish passion long before democracy was invented. Thus Chicago's invention of the Irish imagination. But the Druids also had love affairs. Sometimes seeing their words in the morning in the sunrooms didn't do much for them, but I suppose broken hearts eat breakfasts. You will meet my Ireland when you come over. Not that it knows me much anymore. Druid diaspora, I'm afraid. I miss you a lot. That's a lovely slot machine, high stakes, and what lovely nostalgic music from the jukebox. Does anyone ever have the right change in one's pocket? I'm glad we got the poetical details last night. 1-2 at Charles Street, St. George or Railway Hotel, or failing these in the railway station itself. From there on to Western Fairylands, we got a reception in Trinity on June 30th. No word from Eamon, a hint of a word from God. My hat off to Joan, the rabbit out of the hat to you. Love, broken heart." That's pretty good, I think. This is a poem about Frank O'Hara. I write poems about a lot of writers, Maureen Nidecker, Frank O'Hara, James Joyce, and this is just called Postcard to Frank O'Hara. The reason it's a postcard is because James once told me to always write a postcard to someone. It's a chance to write them a little poem. So here it is, Postcard to Frank O'Hara. Dearest Frank, how you look lovely in your sky blue blazer selling postcards at the information desk of MoMA with your good looks and olive oil charm. I imagine you going to lunch soon with artist friends and compatriots who believe in the power of poetry. Pulsation of city streets shake the glass on 59th Street, and the midday sun runs like a magnifier of beauty, a force from the depths of souls and shining in the windows of the night. How long you have been away from here with your cigarettes and oranges, your caressing words and faces drawn with paint. Love and clouds can always be seen in your eyes while we look for new places to meet. For now, the world reveals itself like a pearl, and equally we look for the right person to stand near, revealing all our secrets. Fittingly, we both resemble romance. Yours with love, Tyler. I wanted to read this poem just because it's about Sinead O'Connor. The reason is because I was in Ireland last year when she died, and the way that they worship that woman and really think of her as a deep, interesting and edgy kind of poet and writer is wonderful. They really think of her as a genius musician and artist, and that's something that I always thought. When I was a kid, I idolized her. Like, I thought that she was one of the best musicians ever, especially because of her protest singing, and I was very angry at the world for hating her after she ripped up the picture of the Pope, and soon now we realize why she did that, obviously. So she's been sort of exonerated to a certain degree, but I wrote this last summer when I was thinking about her and her death, and it also kind of reflects a time I was at play, and they gave her a standing ovation. So here it is. This is called Walk a Little Differently Uphill. And I have a quote from Liddy at the beginning from a poem called The Eighth Day of Christmas for Taoists. And it says, if you look at the stars, you will find heaven begins. That is the custom. Go thou and do something different. Walk a little differently uphill. So here it is. Irish actress reflects trauma and Greek mythology we can all hear in Sinead's haunting voice. We give strong women standing ovations at the Abbey Theater after a performance of Marina Carr's Girl on an Altar. Our sister Sinead indeed deserves an Archbishop Roman celebration, send-off, and retirement, or the request of funeral services from the Pope himself, since the excommunicated cannot engage. Non serviam. Clytemnestra speaks of blood on the stones, dirt and tears, Cassandra brave words ignored. Now the next day I am reading James Liddy poems at Grogan's Castle Lounge, drinking a pint. Soon after, Sinead was ordained a Catholic priest by Bishop Michael Cox in 1999. Liddy said to me in a bar, raising a glass above his halo, quote, "May Sinead O'Connor perform my death mass." I then drank for sacred hands in benediction, memories now for the office of the dead, vespers intoning a requiem mass before the rite of burial, a funeral procession through Bray, County Wicklow. Ultimately, she rests in Dean's Grange Cemetery, buried a Muslim in a Catholic grave. And the wind will be here today and also tomorrow. Requiem aeternam dona eis Domine. Let's do a Nidecker poem. This is one about Marie Nidecker. I love her, and she's a genius, and wrote lots of letters, which is fun, and students like her work too. So this is called Nidecker's Inland Sea. Big sea, strong travel, north line trees, highway 2. Leather car seat smooth. Thermos opens brief near pencil sharpened for log flooded with wet words. Covered rocks, freighters in pockets, castle work that reaches Sault Ste. Marie by sundown. Granite the nettles sing, crickets chirp like loons with shadowy presence of gigantic waves, impurities in the rock. Gulls follow ferries, waterfowl, stone quarried near lone rock grottos with herons and owls, drying words like day reaching morning light, a book for our friends. Journal travelogue poems, north and south shore, journey like Marquette, Joliet, kicked up in Exodus antique, blood in black mineral, storm-beaten fishing villages, my ashes taken to Sand Island. I wanted to also read, this is a very kind of brief Liddy-ism, but he wrote me this letter. This was sent in March 2000. He actually put it in my mailbox in Curtin Hall because we were going to go to this conference, and he says, Tuesday, dear Tyler, I've been very glad if we could go down together to Millikan College at Decatur. The dates are March 25th through the 27th, Thursday to Saturday. It would be a fun academic trip, a most unusual combination. I like that. Here, let me read you just a couple other small poems and then a couple at the end here. I just wanted to read two small poems that I wrote a long time ago. One about James Joyce's birthday and another about Samuel Beckett. So this first one's just called A Poem Written on James Joyce's Birthday, February 2nd, 2010. Clear glass eye patch, mass card labyrinth. I can see your sugar of roses, March pain, foul pleasures in the spring, emblazoned on a bench inside Dublin, pipe smell of burn. A long letter costs £50, parchment caresses the skin. Tremble now, say yes. And this is just called Easter with Samuel Beckett. Upstairs, my wife's family is having house church. Downstairs, I'm waiting for Godot. Let's see. Let me read you this. These are just two James Liddy poems. One that is about his mother that I really love, and I just think it's beautiful. So it's called Last Light in Claire's Mind. This is a James Liddy poem. It has rained like showers of arrows, a warm day in the yard. Pansy clips up the drive for dinner, the red Fiat muddy before the shed. Come, let's sit in the sun on the white garden seat under a pear tree. Claire's wearing a black dressing gown with faded gold buttons. Big trees drowse beyond the dairy wall. Wind performs a small peacock on pear boughs. The wings of an angel of death have a soft landing, no glaring. The notes of Chopin etudes on the piano reply from the study window. The golden cocker spaniel's ginger in my wadi materialize. Buzz of insect summer, a last setting outside the kitchen door, and death shall have its scotch and soda. The masked priest says, Jesus is no magician. He whispers in no one's ears. He works through people. So it is but this morning he whispered in both our ears, I shall officiate right here. And the second poem by James is a poem about me, so I thought I'd read it. It's called Not Being at Tyler's Reading. I think it's very appropriate because he's not at this one either. So here it is. It's called Not Being at Tyler's Reading. I thought Morris dancing the nearest to feeling poetry in your ankles 1957. In the Brown Jacket bookshop, as I was a laurel wreather hearing people talking about me not going to poetry readings 1963. Old dreamers like Proust sit through the night on couches that are never soiled, entangle themselves in carriages and woods, Proust all night in a carriage near the forest's entrance gate. Elegance of dreaming alone about one, he came to read at halfway dream house in white body light. Pearls on leaves after the walk from the door to the gate. He is my mott lifting a white finger on a leaf, but worship from afar was always songs anyway. Time past wreaths mutter, reading once a year when he will sing Morrissey, who is a Morris dancer's ghost, 1999. I used to do that in graduate school, sing Morrissey songs. It's kind of fun to imitate him because he's such a clown. Let's see, I have just a couple more. This one is actually from my last collection. I did a series of poems that were letters to James. After James died, I wrote letters to him on a very regular basis, so I didn't know what to do, so I just started writing them again. So these sort of became poems. The letter poem to me is like a brilliant idea, and Jack Spicer writes great letter poems, and James wrote great letter poems, and so of course I wanted to try to write letter poems. So I wrote 15 poems to James, and this is the last one. It's called just number 15. It says, to James, lilting Liddy, teacher, builder, crafter, we love so much clay in the hands of your warm heart. The poem begins to glimmer, to form in the mind. I remember office hours in the bar and the last few hours before last call, and advice on what to read, a call home, the sound of everlasting good words reverberating in our ears, close to perfection. Words are everlasting greatness, strange in the field of the mind. Song like poems do well with drugs and booze, and we will die early and young. Corpses never write another scrap, but I would like to be found under rocks in the new century, discovered like the night after underground taverns closed, and we had been in there all day. Students in moments, not lifetime learners, they fight it after college. Most talk of how to make more money and watch television with elections and fights and politics and sports Saturdays in the autumn. Spicer wanted to taste the lemon in the poem, the sour, bitter smells of citrus, the real life in taste and being. He would run breathless from his apartment to search for someone to show the poem to. Now that's devotion to a craft. What is the real in poetry but small jackhammers pounding in our mind? Trucks drag images into poems over rough ground with long ropes taught to stretch over drums and crates. I would prefer to drink Guinness in a bar and savor life, and some of this we will never have, and others will have less. Poetry is freedom, and the mind deserves it. I had friends to which I dedicated poems. You are someone who I dedicate my life. Poems with words, and love to love oceans. And this poem is a poem that I didn't want to be at this faculty meeting, so I wrote a poem while I was at a faculty meeting, because faculty meetings are boring. And people bicker too much and stuff like that. So rather than listen, I wrote a poem. So this is called Mystical Daydreaming at the Autumn Faculty Meeting. Sounds up to heaven echo in cavernous ocular spaces. The closets are filled with crucifixes. In the libraries are the mystics praying, flagellation followed by solitude and silence. People whose souls grew weary of the time, self-denial for the glory of God. No light, dark rooms and sins for a century of aestheticism, tears of blood. She can still make me cry determination. You are forgiven again, forever, forgiven inside a meditative heart where souls mind the children who become adults, where the blind stirring of love becomes a sharp dart. In time, you will learn to hammer the cloud and the darkness above you. It is by love we can be caught and held. And I'll just finish with maybe two more short ones. This is one just about the Bad River up north in northern Wisconsin. There's a lot of historical markers marking certain areas, and there's one for the Bad River, which I really love. And one of the themes in this book too is kind of the confluence of rivers. So I thought I'd write a short poem about that. It's called Bad River Historical Marker. Navigate me, marsh river, send flowers from garden villages at Lac du Flambeau, where Isle Detour rides Superior West, sky blue and yellowhammer, merciful axe, frozen tree autumn, guide our dirty water way. And here, this is just a short letter. This is from James on July 11, 2000, sent from Creighton to Milwaukee. It says, Dear Tyler, read Baudelaire's poem on La Chatte. ICIS paragraph looks good. You are a Negapoline juggler. Did Miles like cats? Did God create cats? On what day? You leave all the news out of your letter. Joan and Madison et al. You're wiving. Remember the old Irish advice. Have lots to drink and lots of children. Eric is probably upstairs. Our hall door is yellow and white, papal colors, Kirk's work. Met one love on my birthday and have pain in my hand. Eric without an H went to Summerfest. Joanne got her visa. See all the news I have? Love, James. Okay, and then I'll just read one more. This is a poem for James that I wrote, specifically for this collection, but I'm always sort of thinking about James, and I think I was, kind of looking at some of his letters that day, and so I wrote this kind of short poem. It's just called Poem for James Liddy. Runny nose as I write of you early morning, sun in fog rises, crescendo of light, large room, angelic October, born as gifts of dawn shine, crisp autumn frost and tea steam. Creating piles of word leaves collected later, picking poems always lifts love phosphorescently. For no one speaks, listens for many muses the way the poet does, with a manuscript written on a postcard, mailed to a close friend. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Thank you and all. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great night, and feel free to stick around for a while and enjoy the break. Good night, everyone.